Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 8th Design Review Panel meeting. We have a very busy agenda tonight with 4 projects. First thing we need to do is a little bit of housekeeping and want to review the minutes from our June 10th meeting. Do any of the board members have any questions or comments on the meeting minutes? If there are no questions or comments, can we have a motion to approve?
John, this is Cecily. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Cecily. Is there a second?
This is Kelly, I second.
Okay. All in favor from the design review panel, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Okay, with that, the minutes are approved. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's design review panel, for those of you who are listening for the first time, was created by the Baltimore County Council and acts as a consulting and advisory capacity to the agencies involved in reviewing development plans. The objectives of the DRP include spatial, visual, and functional relationships of building and site, and all the natural building features and surrounding features. As such, we review buildings, parking garages, and other structures that are spatially and visually connected and suitable to their surroundings and proportions. In carrying out its duties, the DRP utilizes guidelines, plans, and architectural principles in the comprehensive manual of development policies and/or master plans, as well as other guidelines and regulations that have been adopted into law. Certain areas of the county were designated by the county council to require review by the DRP. The panel consists of 9 members. All are professionals with practical knowledge in the matters of design. The attendance and comments of each member will be recorded in the meeting minutes, which shall be open and available to members of the community after this meeting, after they were reviewed and approved by the panel. At the end of each presenter's presentation, there will be an opportunity to offer comments and suggestions and make comments for the panel. With that, unless the staff has a particular comment, we'd like to turn it over to the first presenter, which is 1850 Circle Road, which is a residential review project.
Hello, good evening. This is Alan Klatsky. I am a builder developer in Baltimore County. I've been doing this for about 34 years. And this is actually a very interesting project. We're building a single family home for a lovely family on this site, which I think it's important that I give you a little bit of background about the site itself. When I purchased the property, you can go to the next page, Martha. When I purchased the property about a year ago, came to find out that the property was actually set up by the previous owner as a condominium with 3 homes on 6 acres. So there were 3 very large structures along with a 4th structure, which was a detached 2-car garage. The property that we are designating as 1857 was an address assigned to one of the 3 homes. On this particular 2-acre area, there were 2 houses. And then on the area that is 4 acres, there was 1 house known as 1861 Circle Road. So we wanted to clean up this whole idea of condominiums, and we're creating a minor subdivision so that we have 2 clean lots, one which will be 1857 2-acre parcel, and one which will be 1861 as a 4-acre parcel. That minor subdivision plan has been through the process of review for the past year. Most agencies, I think all agencies, are very, very close to signing off. It's just at this point, language and little dot the i's, cross the t's. So it should be fully approved. I'm hoping within the next 30 days, but as you know, with county offices not being accessible to the public, it's a little difficult to know for sure. So that's the background of the property. The house that we are proposing, you can go to the next page, Martha, is 4,500 square feet. Again, as background, the house that this is taking place of was 6,000 square feet. So we're definitely reducing the footprint of construction on this 2-acre parcel. I think that you'll agree, very nice architecture, transitional, a mix of different materials, lots of texture, shaker siding, the board and batten siding, beautiful shutters, and the colors that are shown here pretty close to the actual colors being used. It's hard to get real when it comes to these photographs. Next picture, please, Martha. So this is the view from Circle Road. You can see the driveway at the middle left-hand side of the screen. Driveway comes into the property, and that house was the original house on the property. One thing I would like to point out is that as part of the minor subdivision and all the requirements that Baltimore County is requesting, we are planting about 50 trees in this area as a forest buffer from the road to the stream, which you can see in that little dip. It's a very, very small little stream. But that whole area is going to be planted with trees. So I can't imagine that you'll ever see the house that's actually being built on the property because of all the screening that's being put in. Next slide, please. Here we have the site plan that was sent in along with our permit application. Shows the house nicely proportioned to the lot. One thing to note from this slide is that the rear of the property is a hill going up that's heavily wooded, and all that is going to remain. This also shows the 100-year floodplain area and all the trees that are planted, going to be planted along that entire buffer. So the house is nestled in all of these wooded areas and really will not be seen from any direction. Next slide is just a blow up again of the same thing. Then we go to the house plans. I don't know if the panel has any comment about the plans. I know that you all had an opportunity to review. So again, we have very nice articulation, some arched windows, beautiful front doors, lovely shutters. You can keep going, Martha. The garage will be entered on the side of the house, on the left-hand side. You can continue, Martha. And then we get into the floor plans. I don't know that the panel has any interest in the floor plans. It's a lovely house. You can continue through, Martha. Basement plan. Next. First floor plan. Covered porch. Next. Upstairs floor plan. Next. some more detail about the ceilings. Next. Again, just more detail. You can skim through the rest of this package, Marta. Then the landscape plan was actually prepared by the homeowner. She worked for a landscape architect firm. So again, there's going to be a tremendous amount of planting as part of the forest conservation plan. And she has thrown in all the various colorful plants along the front of the house. And the siding is a hardy plank type of siding. Here it's just shown in the traditional lap, although we're doing the shake, but this shows the color. It's known as granite gray. Next. This just shows the style of the siding, the board and batten, and then you can see at the top the shaker style. So it's going to be a mix of those two types of siding. And then next shows the design of the shutters, not in that color. The color is shown on the next slide. That will be the color of the shutters. And the next slide shows what the garage doors will look like. And the next slide shows the roof shingle. They call it a pewter gray. It's a very dark charcoal color. Timberline, high definition. It's a beautiful shingle. I've used it many times. Next. So this is the picture from my neighborhood, and it shows what the property looked like when I bought it. You can see the 3 homes and the 3 addresses of 1857, 1859, and 1861. Again, all of that has been demolished. It's all cleaned up, beautiful grassy lawn. And in the end, there will be a subdivision line breaking it in 2 parcels, one which is 2 acres and the other which is 4 acres. Next slide is the same county map, maybe a little more clear as to where the structures were. The 4th little tiny structure all the way at the left was the 2-car detached garage. And the next slide shows the relation of the property to Circle Road. The black line is Circle Road, meandering all the way around. And I'm showing 1857 as the really dark hatched area. The other area right below it along that green is going to be 1861. So that's the address that currently exists is 1861. And then the rest of the package just shows some of the homes along Circle Road, which is a true kind of hodgepodge of all kinds of different styles and time capsules, homes that were built all different times. There are some very, very large, magnificent homes, and then there are some very, very small, modest homes. So it's really a mix. I can't say that there's any one type of architecture that is predominant on Circle Road. It's a tremendous mix. And that concludes my presentation.
Alan, thank you very much. Marta, has anyone signed up to speak from the community?
John, we don't have any speakers as of now signed for this particular project.
If I may interrupt, I did, through Peggy, invite everybody to meet with me at the site so I could go over with them what was proposed. And there was one neighbor that did come and was very, very happy with what was being done and said that they would be very supportive. Of course, I sent out notice to all the adjoining neighbors and neighbors across the street who are not adjoining, telling them about tonight's meeting, and I sent them the entire package.
Thank you. With that, I'd like to turn this over to Fran, who is our residential reviewer. Fran, do you have any comments you want to start off with?
No, Mr. Klatsky stole my thunder. I was going to say, as I usually lead off, I got an email from Peggy at Buxton Riderwood, the meeting he referenced, and Peggy's email confirmed that there was no comments that any of the neighbors had for the project. So there's nothing there. I guess my only question, two questions. I assume on the 4-acre lot, you're going to build an additional home there. Is that the plan?
Yes, I'm going to be submitting that. I didn't want to confuse the neighbors and you, the panelists. I will be submitting that for the next meeting.
Okay, great. Well, we'll deal with, I mean, they're large enough lots. I don't think it's an issue, but we like to look at, siting and scale and that kind of stuff, but I don't think it's a big deal. And the only other question I had, and maybe you kind of addressed this, is did you have sort of a consolidated landscape plan that did cover sort of the trees you talked about planting? Because you did assert that there was a lot of screening from the road, and not that I have any real issues with the house. I just wondered if you did have a consolidated landscape plan showing the plantings.
Yes, that plan was done by Human and Rhodey,
Okay.
and it's a very, very comprehensive plan. And
Okay.
the plantings actually wrap all the way around the corner of Circle Road.
But it's not in the package, right?
It's not in the package. I'm sorry. It's part of the development work. So I did not include that. I'd be happy to send it to you if you would like to see it.
I'd love to see it, but let me just say this. Let's see what everybody has to say about the house. I don't actually have any comments about the house itself. I think I've been on this panel too long because this is probably the third time I've seen this property come before the panel. So it's nice to see it get cleaned up a little bit. But I think it's a fine house, and I don't have anything to add.
Thank you.
Okay. So do any members of the panel have any comments? I think, why don't I start with Donald Kahn?
Hi, thank you. I think you've done a good job of sort of developing the image of the house. The only thing I would say, which I've said before, is I would give a lot of consideration to right sizing the shutters. It's convenient to use what's made, but with the exception of the one window to the first floor, which looks about right, the rest of the shutters are way out of proportion to what the windows are. So I would look hard at that. I think the design of the shutters are fine. I would revisit the size of them. I think it would really help a lot to the proportions of the house.
I will most certainly do that. I thank you for your comment.
And that was it.
Okay. Cecily, you have any comments?
Yes, good evening. Some comments and questions. Let's see. I'm just going to go in the order that I wrote them down as I reviewed the various drawings. I'll refer to the elevation or the plans to which the comments refer as I go. Let's see, on the rear elevation, I don't think it's a requirement, but on a house like this and the quality that it is, it would be nice to have the rake returns on the rear gable match the front gable rake returns instead of being boxed out. Also on the rear elevation, there are shakes in what I think was the fireplace doghouse pop-out within the closed gable. I think that should be a panel of PVC or some equivalent panel material rather than shakes. If I was reading that correctly, it was a little small and hard to read. I'm not sure if that was labeled or not. A question on for all of the elevations. Is there a stone sill above the water table? And I assume, I think in your package you wrote that it's natural stone. Is that water table sill stone also natural stone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. And then there isn't a skirt or band board, horizontal trim board above that water table sill. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I think that still works. Okay, related to the water table, it looks like on the, at the porch level, the water table is at the top of foundation. At the garage, it bumps up and is just below the windows. I think, traditionally, a water table should be at the break point between the foundation and the framed portion of the house above it. It's a consideration, but I know another panelist who probably would hold you to task on that, but I think it's okay the way that it's detailed. It's just some consistency would be good. I would also, let's see, I would echo the comment on the shutters. It doesn't seem like there is a consistency in the application of the shutters. So I agree with the comment on the sizing of the shutters typically, and they are beautiful shutters. The Timberland shutters are very nice. I'm not sure if you intend for them to be operable, but in any case, I think they'll appear operable. And really what we'd like to see in shutter dimension is that when, and if they were to close, they would cover the windows fully. Obviously you have them on the double windows, a single pair of them on either side, unless those are double shutters, they are out of scale. I think widening the shutters would help, but you also have, go ahead.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Because typically I agree with you and I try that approach, but on this particular elevation, if you look at the second floor, the windows are rather close to that big gable area with the triple window.
Right.
So there's no room to get a wider shutter there. Would you like to see wider shutters on the windows where they would fit and then leave those as they are? I personally thought, since I can't do really wide shutters up on the second floor, then I'll just have them all be consistently the same size.
Yeah, well, typically I would recommend that double windows do not get shutters, period, because they typically would not have them unless they are the double folded shutter that then would fold out. So let's just put a hold on that for a moment. I also think that there are, you have the triple windows, which do not have shutters, and then some single windows that don't have shutters. So typically we would see that if shutters were applied, they would be applied to windows consistently throughout the elevation. So we have a lot of different elements happening here that, some don't have shutters at all.
We put shutters only on the windows that were in siding. Windows that are in stone areas, we elected not to put shutters.
Okay, but yes, I don't know that that's a traditional approach, but I understand the, the mechanics of that or why you would do that. It looks like if you have the ability, I can't tell from this drawing, do you know the width of the shutters that are currently there? And if you increase them by 2 inches, would they fit within next to that pop out portion on the second?
I think I certainly have 2 inches, yes.
Okay. I would try to increase, just to reach a balanced conclusion here is, and for my other panelist comments is widen them to the extent and leave them where you have them. The other comment is the upper gable has a window, a single window with shutters. That I take it as a false window. It's not a functional window. It's up too high to be functional, I think.
That's correct.
Okay. I would recommend there a louvered panel, much like you have in the lower left double gable, rather than a window, just so that it is some consistency. I don't know that the window up there helps, and it's also very high up that it makes it seem kind of awkward, whereas a vent would actually read as functional and not feel constrained up there in the gable.
I appreciate your point.
Let's see. On the right side, on the porch, you have I think it looks like a single porch, sorry, a single riser going up to the walking surface of the porch. What is the material of that step?
Bluestone.
It is, okay, and that's on the top surface as well as it's trimmed out. Okay, and is it only one riser in that location?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, all right, great. And then the surface of the porch is all bluestone as well?
The porch and the walkway is all bluestone.
Perfect, great. The siding, is that a smooth finish, cementitious? I know you have.
It's a wood grain finish.
It is, okay.
Would you rather have smooth?
I think that always reads more as a painted wood material, whereas the wood grain on cementitious looks more like vinyl siding. It doesn't, we like to see almost like a brushed finish or a smooth finish on what is supposed to look like clapboard siding.
Okay.
I would recommend that.
I will do that.
The last thing I think is a minor point. Typically where you have next to the front entry door, you have, I believe on the plan, there's no half square column attached to the wall. Typically we would like to see that, but I think that's a minor point. And then lastly, the depth of the porch. What is the depth of the porch?
8 feet.
Perfect, okay. Well, good answers to most of the questions, so thank you for that. That's the end of my comments and questions.
Thank you, Cecily. As usual, you're very comprehensive and thorough, and hopefully make the job easier for the rest of the panel. With that, Joe, do you have any comments?
Good evening, Joe Yusufero. Alan, with your presentation and the elevations, very nice job. I think with the discussion of the panel previously, I don't have any further comments. So it's nice work.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Kelly, how about you?
Nope, to your point, John, Cecily was super thorough, so no further comments. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, Matt.
Yeah, this is Matt D'Amico. I'm just going to make one comment, and I say it hesitantly because it looks like your client did her own landscape plan. But I would just say take a look at the size of the plant material and be cautious about its, the height that they're going to get. And you're not going to want significantly tall, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 foot shrubs and trees, I think, in the front. So I would just, if there's a way to sort of suggest that, it's just advice.
I appreciate it. I will say something.
Hey. Let's see, Marta, how many other panelists do we have on here? Is Matt on?
John, we have actually someone from the public who would like to speak.
Okay, well, what about remaining board members, or is that it?
Hey, John, Matt here.
Oh, okay. Hi, Matt.
Second, Matt. Hey, just two minor comments. One was just on the site plans that were submitted, it was just difficult to see if the trees were to remain or to stay. So if they are to remain, just make sure that they get protected during construction. And then appreciate the comment about the reforestation. I think Fran already hit on it, just making sure that that plan gets submitted so somebody can see where the reforestation trees are going to be included.
Thank you, Matt.
Sure.
Marty, you said we had attendee who wants to speak.
Yes, we have Janet McHugh, and I will unmute her. And Janet, please, when you're ready, let me know. Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can everyone hear Janet McHugh?
Yes.
I see some nods. So this will be very, very short. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. As some of you may know, you don't know this, I live immediately adjacent to the property. Our parcels are contiguous. But as some of you may know, this property has been troubled. This property has been abandoned and has been, unfortunately, sort of an eyesore for many years and was unable to be sold. Mr. Klatsky came in and is willing and able to develop this property with 2 homes. And I just want to say that I've spoken to several of the neighbors. He has worked with the community. He has worked with Peggy Squitieri and the other neighbors. And this will be a great benefit to this neighborhood. I could even exaggerate more than that because as a neighbor for many years, it's just wonderful that somebody has finally brought this property and will bring it to a higher level, if you will. Certainly a much nicer house than my own, and mine's very nice. So thank you to Prestige and Mr. Klatsky. We really look forward to the development of the second lot. And I think there may be more input there, but he will continue, I know, and we hope to work with the neighborhood. And so I'm just speaking in support of the project. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay, well, thank you very much for those comments. With that, Fran, as the residential reviewer, would you like to make a motion?
So John, I set out this evening to take such detailed notes that I couldn't possibly miss anything Cecily or anyone else said. I think I probably failed miserably, but I'm going to give it a shot. And as always, you can jump in and add or correct as necessary. So there's a few things that I'm not sure if they're going to get, we wanted to add or not. So maybe that's part of the discussion. So I would move that we approve the project with the following conditions. With regard to shutters, that they be widened where you can widen them, but they remain in place as shown on the drawing. That you submit a landscape plan to show the reforestation plan and the consolidated plan on the property. On the rear elevations, have the rake returns match the rake returns on the front elevation. That the shakes, did we decide the shake should be a panel on the rear as well? Okay. Let's see, the front elevation, the window be replaced by a vent, that the siding have a smooth finish versus the wood grain finish. Let's see, what else did I miss? Jump in anywhere you want, Cecily.
I think you got all of them. I was going to just add the last thought over my notes is if just consider replacing the transom garage windows that are curved top currently with a straight topped, because that is the opening in which they are placed. Currently it shows it curved. To see it with straight, so it looks like it fits within that space. Otherwise, I think you got it. And just to clarify for whoever's taking notes on the motion, the shakes to be replaced on the rear elevation is just within the fireplace doghouse bump out. But otherwise, yes, perfect.
Cicely, can you please repeat your new comment about the garage window?
Marta, do you think you could go to that page that shows the garage doors?
Sure.
Currently, the transom windows of the garage doors, oh, that one shows them. Okay, maybe you might have to zoom in a bit. I think they show them curved.
Yes, you were talking about the colored photograph that I showed of garage doors.
Well, and this plan, or sorry, this elevation also shows the transom windows have a curved top.
Curve, yes.
Right, which I think is only appropriate when the opening is curved. I would suggest a straight top transom. And it's just a consideration, not a mandate.
Okay, appreciate that.
So John, do we need to summarize that? Or are you okay with all that?
I think we're okay. Marta, did you get everything for your notes?
John, someone else taking notes during, but we also recorded meetings, so I think we're good to go.
Okay. With that, does anyone have a second?
I'd second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Mr. Klatsky, thank you very much for your presentation tonight. It was very thorough, well done, and thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay. With that, we're going to move to our second project this evening, which is presentation for student housing project at 706 Washington Avenue in downtown Towson. With that, our presenter, you have the floor.
Hello? Hello?
We can hear you.
Yes, so, Nick, are you on?
I am. I'm right here.
Okay, so this proposal is a 300-bed, 88 student housing units in downtown Towson. It's zone BMDT, which is downtown. The actual site, net site, is about a quarter of an acre, and the gross site, which includes the right-of-ways, located on Ware Avenue, Washington Avenue, and West Joppa Road. Those are the three roads that surround the property. So the gross area is about a half an acre, which includes up to 30 feet to the centers of those roads. The actual zoning is really unlimited for the student housing units, but this particular project, which will be further described by the architect, has major amenities along the streets, has a lot of landscaping and fenestration. With that, I'll give it to the architect.
Thank you. My name is Nick Hill with Niles Bolton Associates. We have offices in Atlanta and Alexandria, Virginia. And so, Marta, if you want to go forward, we can work through this presentation here. Okay, next. So, Mark Manzo, the owner of the property, came to us asking us to look at a student property for a private property outside of Towson for the students. And so we came in and had a program of around 350 beds to hit, 150 units or so, and within that DT district. And so with that, I believe there were some presentations previously. And Mark, if you'd like to speak to some of the movements you've had with the community and some of the outreach you've had, if you would go ahead and speak to that, and then I'll go through the design itself.
Sure. I'm Mark Manza, the developer. I've owned this property with my family since 2004, and we've had a lot of back and forth between designs, and we finally determined that student housing was the best fit. And we had some contentious meetings at first that we resolved. We've reached an agreement with the community, and we've reduced the height by 25 feet. We've reduced the bed count by 27%, from 482 beds to 350 beds. We've reduced the ceiling heights from 12 feet to 9 feet. Added a lot of setbacks along the perimeter of the site on all four sides. We've added more terrace space and cutouts to the building, pulling the building back from the edges on Ware, as well as on the western edge. And we've exceeded the downtown Towson goal of 5% open space. And we're really happy with the feedback we've gotten from the community. They seem to really think it's a beautiful design, and we do too. I've changed architects to Niles Bolton because they're top-notch student housing designer. And I guess I'll let them take it from here unless there's anything else that I need to address.
I think that's great. Thank you, Mark. All right, so we'll just dig in here. If you would just go to the next page. One more. So our site is between Ware Avenue and West Joppa Road along Washington Avenue. The site really is a visual node along Washington Avenue as you're coming from the university, and also from the north. And so, and we have a very small wedge-shaped property. So quite the unique scenario here, but luckily with the DT, we're able to expand to our boundaries without any setbacks. And so you can see the location here. We are across from a condominium high-rise, a lower-rise multifamily property that just was built, and a very large parking deck. So our massing, as we'll see in our section. So if you'll go forward, Marta. Here is the context of the property. Large parking deck to our north, the new multifamily property to our east, and the condos to our east as well. It's that kind of southeast. And then we do have a smaller scale residential building to our west. Okay, next please. So this gives you a latitudinal and longitudinal sections of the property and the heights in relationship to its neighbors across Ware and Joppa, and then also to our west and on Washington. Really, if you pulled back the section before, there's the building, the condominium building is quite a bit taller than this building. So next. We have about a 10-foot grade difference between the northeastern portion of the property and the southern portion of the property. That's allowing us to tuck in some parking from the Joppa side, and then also come in on top of that off of Ware into another parking location. This also allows us to connect to the neighboring parking garage across the street. So next. Next slide, please. Okay. These show the two entrances, one off of Ware Avenue for the vehicle, one off of West Joppa. We have the services for the building located, the transformers off of Ware. We also have the fire control center and the trash off of Ware. We have a cafe off of the corner of Ware and Washington. And then we have kind of the main secure entrance a little south of that, west on Page, where it says airlock, our main secure entrance for the cafe and for the concierge. And as you move down Washington towards Joppa, we have a dedicated entry for students right in the middle. And we work our way down to an active zone at the community arts area. And then our generator is adjacent to it, and then our entrance. As you can see, we do have the chamfers noted. And where it says public seating, there's that chamfered line that goes through some seats on Joppa, and then another chamfered line at the corner of at the cafe of Ware in Washington, and that's your sight lines from those two curb cuts. Okay, next. Just our zoning map. We can go past through here. Next. Okay, this is an optional basement. This could or could not, depending on storage needs and potentials, but right now this is just shown as an option and how it would work. But I think going up to the next level, next page, tells a story of us access from Joppa Road. We have 17 spaces here. This is where our accessible van space would be. Electrical rooms, a lot of bike storage, and access up into the tower. I believe this would be kind of a secondary space. An entrance, the main entrances would be central to Washington and on the northeast corner, as we can go then to that. Next slide. To the Ware access. Feel a lot of parking would be across the street. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but you have 75 parking spaces and 100 parking spaces and 2 other decks. Is that correct? That would supplement this.
Yeah, the Baltimore County Revenue Authority is telling us we'll have 75 across the street at Tolbert or in one of their other garages like the library. And then the Allegheny Avenue garage, which is about a block away diagonally, is giving us another 100. So we have 175 off-site and 35 on-site.
Okay. So with that, so we have our access here off of Ware Avenue. We have 3 alternate modes of transportation vehicles. So these would be shuttles back and forth to Towson University, and they would make a U-turn in here. We have access from the elevator vestibules and a communal amenity type space that would bring you to those transportation vehicles. And then secure access points off of Washington Avenue for all the residents of this property. And that will be securely protected by card access and also cameras and all the normal things a student housing property will have. Next. Okay. So as we come up to level 3, this is where we start putting in our amenities, our club room, our fitness. You'll start seeing the unit show up. We'll have study rooms on every floor as we go up through here. There'll be alternating floors with shared laundry and office and conference here, and then a large outdoor space for the site, if you will, with grill station, seating, and that type of thing. And what we've tried to do is really kind of open this up and step down the scale of the building by pulling the middle in from the western property line and provide some green space, just some active space in this location. Next. So you'll see at the top levels 4 through 14 alternating floors with the laundry. And so these would just be our typical floors. We have a mix of micro units. Some could be shared or they could be single occupancy with the utilization of Murphy beds. We have 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s also. So a very typical situation for student housing, but with the shared laundry. We do have 1-to-1 bed to bath parities unless we do double occupy one of the micro type units. But right now it is a 1-to-1 bed to bath. Next. You'll see on every floor, this one now has the lounge. So where we don't have the washer dryer, we have a lounge scenario to try to give the students somewhere to go to on every floor. Next. As we come up to the roof, we have a sky lounge area looking out west and east, and then a planted and active green space, an outdoor space for the residents up on the roof. Outdoor spaces are very important. Everybody needs that getaway from the indoors. So I think we're trying to maximize it as much as possible on this site. Next. So we can go into the elevations. Next page. So materiality wise and massing wise, we really tried to break down the building into different vertical elements instead of one big wall of one color, one material. And so you'll see along every elevation that will at least have 2 stacks with a nice base. We also tried to vary the windows so it didn't look so monotonous with just a bunch of punched openings. So we do have some mix of window wall and regular punch glazing elements. The terracotta color right now is we have a mix of terracotta and an Eaves product with patterning and coloring to match. The window walls, we do have an off-white aluminum slab edge color cover, and then the windows would be a charcoal gray. Same with the storefront. And then what you see to the right, the white portion would be an off-white Eaves panelized system. And you can see the heights here. And the heights will be different varying from which street they're on. So we're looking from where right now. Next. So the east elevation, this is probably the biggest, the longest elevation that we have. And so we have the 3 towers, but then with the vertical circulation, even with that, we've put some glazing in there just to give a break between the solid elements. And then you'll see the brick is an iron spot brick, which gives you kind of a nice shiny, a sheen, kind of a mica type look to it. Very beautiful. I've used it on quite a few projects, and it's very, very nice looking. We do have some storefronts and curtain walls on the ground level, really addressing the street and really trying to bring that transparency and the ability to provide that feeling of security and being seen and being able to see, which is very important. And you can see how the side's falling off here. As it does fall off, I think it gives us a great opportunity, as you'll go then to the next slide, Martha, to open up that southern corner. So when people are coming to the site, approaching the site, it really is it'll give a dramatic effect, and we'll see and massing, and you'll see that in one of the renderings here. But again, just trying to break up these vertical elements with the brick, the Eaves, and the terracotta. Next. And then this is the western view, really minimizing the amount of windows that we would have on this western view. The windows will be tinted, all of them facing west, but most windows we've tried to organize the units to where they're north-south facing to respect that community. We do have the iron spot brick over here with louvers to block any light spillage from the garage. Next. Next. So this is the image coming from the south. You can see how the building is lifting up out of the site, and how the massing is broken up. And just trying to bring some character with some simple materials, not trying to overdo it by just adding a bunch of different things, but trying to bring some hierarchy to each point from the north to south and then in that middle entrance there. Next. Next. You can go to the next slide. That's good. So now we're from the Joppa, the north corner, looking into the cafe. It's got a nice sharp corner on this. I really like this corner.
That's the Ware and Washington.
Ware, sorry, I'm sorry, the Ware. Sorry about that. Next. Just some different views. And you can see how the building is hanging over, especially in this view. And when we get into some of the lower perspectives, how the building kind of gives cover to that public realm down below with the seating and everything. And we can watch that with lighting. So next slide, please. The western view, and you can start seeing the green activity roof. Next. This is a good view to see the size of this project in relationship to the one across diagonal. Next. So this is the corner from Joppa where we're looking up into this communal art space, really canting that column to keep it within that chamfer on the corner, and then bringing in the brick patterns on the streetscape, really activating these corners as much as possible, while trying to push the vehicle and trying to push some of these service areas back, and it really not be a dominant thing as it can be sometimes. But really trying to activate these corners, the street corners in Washington especially. Next. And you can see how we've started lifting the brick out of the ground plane to create these knee walls, because we do have quite a bit of fall. And so we need to be able to plant those, put some steps in between in different locations, and that will help, I think, give us a nice three-dimensional expression even along the pedestrian walk and sidewalk on Washington. Next. We've chosen to move the entrance to the property down, one of the entrances to the property down just a little bit from this corner. We're trying to really activate this corner with people. We will have some structure and things in that corner because of the nature of the structure of this property, and really try to give a view into this cafe and into this public space. The main entrance to the building will really be just in and out for students. And so we really tried to reserve this for that congregational type space. So, and allow the cafe to spill out into the corner versus kind of blocking it off with just a direct entrance and exit. Next. And as you go, you'll see the parking. You'll see, the signage. As we go, we have a signage page at the end. But most of it's just directional and wayfinding signage. And then we do have the large signage on the front of the building. This is a entrance that if you park over into the other deck, you could actually walk through here and go into an entrance, into that other secure entrance back here where you see the storefront door. So that would allow the ability to have that direct access and not have to go around the front. Next. Just another view from Joppa. Next. Next. And so for the landscape, we're matching. The goal is to meet the town center requirements for the streetscape, the brick patterning, and we have comments about trees and light poles, and so that would get integrated and will be integrated into this.
Just one thing, that there will be a BGE line, power line that'll run along Ware Ave. It's there currently. So we can't have any tall trees on Ware Ave. We could have some ornamental style trees if you want trees, but really I think shrubs would be better. I've tried ornamental trees before and they get pretty big. Just on Ware Ave.
Okay. And so what we've also tried to do, as you can see here, is provide a lot of different public spaces. So the cafe seating, and then we've got the bike rack in the middle, which is and the benches mid block, and then down on Joppa some more seating. And obviously that can be programmed as it needs to be, since it's all totally open. Next. And then these are just some more detailed landscape plans as we move up the building for the amenity spaces for the residents. And we can provide all of the species of plants at that next level. Really, we can provide all of this, all that information for you. Next. So this is the rooftop lounge. Semi-private, private, some group seating, fire pits, grilling stations, a lot of the very typical things that student properties possess, but I think it really takes this property to the next level. Next. A quick rendering just to kind of give you the experiential. Next. Next. And we'll kind of just flip through the unit plans real quick. This is one of the micros, another micro, and then we get into the 1-bedroom units, 1 bath. Next. A unique 2-bedroom unit along the property line. 2 bed, 2 bath. Our 3 beds, 3 bath. And then our 4 bed. Next. And another 4 bed. Okay, go to the materials now. So we're looking at the terracotta Neocera product up to around level 6, and then we're going to transition to a little more cost-effective product that maybe have a bad rap, but has really gotten a better name these days, especially in the light that it's a drainable systems now. So looking at a panelized eave system that we can get the same panel gestures and everything through that system. The iron spot brick, as you see in the middle, probably just a typical modular brick. The iron spot is actually where you see the panelized eaves off-white there. That's one I just completed up at Temple University called the Vantage. That's also got the iron spot on it. Turned out wonderful. And then up above that, that's the off-white eaves that you see above in the big field. And then the colors really are just the terracotta, the off-white, and grays, kind of just natural tones. Okay, next. And then these are the blow-ups of the different signage pieces, really trying to integrate it into the architecture as we can, whether it be into the storefronts, into the curtain walls. And we can note these. We could put a keynote that shows where they're at on the building if we need to, and maybe on the elevations. Just trying to meet the requirements here. And then most of these with the studios and reverse channel backlit type signage, nothing neon or anything obnoxious, just really trying to a nice subtle gesture with those. And then more of a machine signage for the within to match the storefronts and the curtain walls everywhere else. So next. And then just some details for the knee wall streetscape showing the use of brick as the face material and the veneer. And I think we have a few details of that as well. But with that, I believe that's what we have for the presentation this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Marta, do we have any community members signed up to speak?
Yes, we have Beth Miller here.
Marta, how many community members are there to speak tonight?
As of now, we just have Beth Miller. And Beth, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I just did.
Perfect. So, John, we have Beth here.
Hi, my name is Beth Miller. I'm speaking on behalf of the Greenhouse Alliance. In general, we support the planning staff's comments on this project. We do not believe the proposed design is appropriate in relation to either the size of the site or the neighboring properties. It is important to see the site in the context of the surrounding buildings, and we've provided a drawing that shows the setbacks and building heights in the area. Marta, can you put that up, please? So the build to line of the 10-story rear garage north, which is building F, and the 4-story Washington office building south of the site, which is building B. Those buildings are set back from Washington Avenue between 22 and 30 feet with similar setbacks on the east side of Washington Avenue. This build to line reflects the ultimate county right-of-way about 22 feet from the curb. Unfortunately, the county plans to sell the right-of-way and the developer wants to build very close to the road. A setback should be provided to align with adjacent buildings north and south. This solves myriad problems. It makes room for required street trees that provide ecological services such as stormwater absorption, clean air, and reduced heat island effect. Trees shade sidewalks and open spaces, plus they add scale and a sense of enclosure so pedestrians will enjoy walking and lingering on the streetscape. A setback makes room for pedestrians. A 10-foot sidewalk is just too narrow downtown. Once amenities like planters, bike racks, benches, and practicalities like building entrances and snow accumulation are taken into account, the sidewalk gets even more narrow, as little as 5 feet in some areas. 2 people cannot pass each other comfortably or safely in 5 feet. A setback makes room for required downtown open space. The spirit and intent of the design guidelines is to create public spaces for gathering, cafe seating, civic spaces, or art. Only a small portion of the area called downtown open space is usable for those activities. And in the case of the cafe, the space then encroaches into the streetscape to an impractical and dangerous extent. Since on-site parking is minimal, a setback makes room for a bicycle and/or parking lane. This would create a barrier between the streetscape and traffic, which enhances the sense of safety for pedestrians and contributes to walkability. Concur with the planning staff comments that the building should step back at the 3rd or 4th floor like the nearby penthouse tower does. This will create less of a canyon effect on the street and allow daylight to reach the streetscape. If the sidewalk is not widened and the massing is not changed, the developer needs to provide environmental and aesthetic relief from this building through a combination of green walls, green roofs, and/or solar panels. A relocation of the 3rd floor terrace and light well to the Washington Avenue facade would provide some relief to the imposing massing of the current design. The recommended revisions are substantial. In the interest of transparency, we request the DRP ask the developer to return to the DRP for additional review before making your final recommendations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Beth. With that, if there's no other community speakers, I'd like to start going to the panel and getting their comments. I think for this project, Matt, I'd like to start with you.
Okay, did you say Matt?
I did.
Okay. This is it's a pretty aggressive project. It does feel, my instinct is it feels as though it's really crowding the site. So I think if we're going to be doing that, there's some things that need to be studied. I think that's at street level, it needs some help. I'm a little disappointed that the top of the building doesn't create an interesting skyline or meet the sky. It's very tall. It's going to be one of the tallest buildings in Towson, so it's going to be prominent, seen from a lot of places. And you know, I'll make some other comments. I have a few questions and suggest, or requests, if you will. I think it would help us if you had plans that actually showed the dimensions of the minimum dimensions of the sidewalk, because I can't tell. There's some places where you got planters, you got it measured to front of a bench or something like that. So I think it would help us if we knew what the actual dimensions were from curb to a knee wall, from curb to a planter. It looks, in many cases, it might only be 5 or 6 feet wide, but I can't tell. Another thing that would be helpful is to provide dimensions on the plans to the width of the stairs. There's a couple places it looks like there's an opening in the knee wall and provides a stair into an entrance. They look incredibly narrow, but I can't tell. Some of the elevation you have here, I don't know if it's just the rendering, but what is the dark horizontal line in between every single floor? Is that just the computer rendering did that, or is that intended to be something?
That's a panel joint.
Okay. Let's see. I also think it would be helpful for us to have a plan that shows exactly how you've met the 5% open space. Again, I can't tell.
We have a development plan that's been produced. And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, if y'all submitted that, and that's got shows us at 6% or a little over 6% open space.
Okay, I think.
Yeah, that's on the DRP package. Marta, you could flip to that site plan.
While you're doing that, I'll keep going.
Sure.
I think there's some locations along Joppa Road where the columns come down into the sidewalk or hardscape. If I'm understanding that correctly and they're not shown, I think that would be helpful to see, perhaps on this plan here. It would also be helpful to see the line of the building above. I'm assuming the line of the building above comes all the way out to the right of way. Is that correct on all 4 sides?
Correct.
Let's see. Those were some of, looking through my questions. The loading area was on page 9 was labeled as 5 feet wide. That must be, that can't be right. So those are some drawings and some additional information that I think would be helpful to have on drawings for us so we can better understand some of these things. So I'm just going to go through my comments and follow the downtown Towson district guidelines just to be consistent here. In terms of sustainability, my understanding is that it will meet LEED Silver. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
In terms of block configuration, so there's a item in the guidelines that say corners of blocks should be given specific design consideration, emphasizing a location of unique architectural features, entrances, and then it says it again in building principles and architecture, item 5 in the guidelines. And I just want to talk about that for a moment. So the Washington and Joppa Road intersection is really the most important corner because a lot of people travel north on Washington Avenue leaving Towson, and because of the angle in the road, that's a very, very prominent corner. See, I think at page 31, if I wrote it down correctly. So I'm just going to ask if there's a possibility of studying a couple of things. I think it would, so if you look at the rendering, it's there's a lot of stuff going on. It's a bit clumsy, quite honestly. Angled column, this heavy brick cantilever thing coming out, and then things pushed back that create dark space. It just feels unresolved to me. So I'm wondering if there's a way to pull the community room out farther, wrap the glazing around the entire corner, 2 stories high. Maybe there's a way you could push the generator room back, or you could rotate it, or adjust the fire pump room or something. But I think it's worth studying to see if there's a way to wrap that art room glazing around that corner 2 stories tall. And then the brick cantilever piece, which is the second level of the garage, is rather heavy. I wonder if that could be also pushed back so the glazing comes in front of it, or could it be thinner with just a railing above? It's rather heavy in my opinion.
So one of the things that we had to address is this chamfer along the right of way here.
Right.
So that's why we pulled that back. We're just trying to hit those extents as much as we can, and so that's why that was pulled back the way it is.
Okay. All right.
Because these and that also happens at Ware in Washington. We have that chamfer that we can't go over. So that's just the reasoning why things are pulled back there. And those are 2-story elevations. The glass is a 2-story expression.
Right. Okay. I still feel like that intersection feels a little unresolved. There's an awful lot of things going on. The angled column feels forced. That brick cantilever piece coming forward, that's between the first and second level of the garage. Sure. I just think if all that could be simple and cleaned up, and it just felt like there's this 2-story glassy element art room, and it might, like I said, it might require some adjusting of the fire room, the generator room, or something, or you might come back and say it's not possible. But I'm just responding to these 2 very important criteria in the guidelines about the corner, and to me, this is the most important corner of the whole building. Then this is, I'm going to say this anyway. It's you're probably going to not like it, but is there a way that the unit on that corner, that right on Joppa and Washington Avenue, could carve some area out of it? It's a living room right there, and if there's a way to push that back and create some tall vertical element, part of the windows that goes from floor all the way to ceiling, it would really accentuate that corner. Again, I don't know if that's possible, but it looks like there might be room in that room to do that. And again, I think it would respond much more elegantly to this criteria and the guidelines about the important corner here. So I think that corner needs some more study. The Ware corner is much better. I just feel like the floor height, it just feels awfully squished. Like it's just, the floor height isn't right there at Ware. And I don't know where the underside of the slab, yeah, that's the area I was talking about. It just feels cluttered and unresolved to me. So I finished commenting on that. The Ware intersection, I think it just needs to be taller. That cafe space needs to have a taller ceiling. I don't know where the underside of the slab is, but if that could be lifted up, it just feels pinched. It just feels, the scale, the proportion just feels awkward to me. So that's block configuration, addressing the corners. Those are comments. In terms of the open space and the streetscape, I think, like I said, it'd be great to see how you're meeting the 5%. I think this plaza here is, I don't know what the material is. I'm sure you're going to develop a little bit more, but putting the brick band against the curb and then just letting inside of that all the way to the building to feel like a plaza feels right to me. And I think something similar could be studied at the Joppa Washington Avenue intersection. Having that second layer of brick banding inside the curb just further accentuates the narrowness of the streetscape. I just think that's something that maybe you should study, if there's a way you could eliminate that, at least at the intersections. Let's see. What about the sidewalk widths here? I am concerned that the narrow sidewalks here are not consistent with the rest of the blocks and the streets. Washington Avenue is pretty important. it looks like in some cases only 7 feet wide. That's really troubling to me. I don't know how else to put it. I think they need to be wider, and if there's room to get street trees along Washington Avenue, that'd be great. But pushing the building out and crowding the sidewalk and cantilevering the building upper floors all the way out to the right of way, you just have try to cram every single thing you can in on the site. So I don't know if there's going to be even room to do trees, but and then the two main entrances into the airlock, and it looks like there's another entrance just south of that that goes into a small vestibule, and then you turn left and go down the stairs. If those could just be accentuated a little bit with, I don't know, signage, canopy, a little bit wider connection. It looks like it's barely 3 or 4 feet wide and a couple risers up. It's kind of hard to tell, but it just feels like the entrances could be celebrated a little bit more there. Let's see. So then I'll go on to building principles, which is item 5. I heard you talk about EFS and matching the Niacera, but I haven't seen that. I would love to hear how the other panel members feel, but I don't know if you're going to be able to pull that off and make it feel the same. It worries me. And there's going to be a pretty significant joint between the two materials. So we need to, either I need to be convinced that it's going to work the way you're showing it, or the rendering probably should be adjusted to show what is the EFS really going to look like. I'd also maybe offer, maybe there should be a base to this building that wraps all 4 sides. Maybe it doesn't need to go up as tall as what you're suggesting to cut down a little bit on cost, but allow it to go all the way around all 4 sides. It looked like the Niacera was going up to what, 4, 5, or 6 or something. So if there's a way to create a base that was more in the 2, 3, 4 story range, save you a little bit of money, and wrap all 4 sides of the building, that's an important principle of the guidelines. I think it's worth considering at least. And then if the EFS is not going to match the Niacera, then just have a nice base, have a nice datum line, a horizontal line, and then just transition to a different material up above. The vertical, the window punching, the window openings, the punches versus the vertical groupings. I get the idea of the vertical groupings, and I think it helps, but I think it could be stronger if perhaps if it looks like some of the windows have a vertical panel to the side, which and then the vertical groupings have the white horizontal band. So it's kind of almost hard to see that these vertical groupings really are amounting to much. So could they, perhaps the vertical groupings are the only ones with the panel, so the vertical panel, so it looks wider, or maybe the white band is not necessary, so that grouping is much bolder and stronger. I think there's a way to create much more contrast between the punches and your vertical openings. It just the facades, just the window patterns and the fenestration just feels very, very regular. And I know you're trying to break it up. I think it could be. There could be more.
It's a mechanical louver, so it's like a VPAC unit, and so that's why it's stacking with the units.
Got it.
That louver, so it's
Okay.
Functional thing there. But I understand what you're saying.
I understand the comment. Maybe there's another strategy you could come up with. I think your thought of burying the windows, having these vertical groupings, and to try to break it up and create some interest and rhythm is a good one. I just think it's not coming across as bold as it could. I had a couple questions about how the south elevation facing Joppa Road, how does that transition to EFS? The north side, it turns the corner, and I saw in your rendering how that transitions from the Niacera and the EFS to the gray EFS, but on the south-facing elevation on Joppa, it looked like there's a vertical, the
Page 22.
22, yeah, right.
It's a window.
Is
Or-
there,
I've got a metal vertical panel in between, actually.
and is that recessed or coming forward or
Recessed.
coplanar with everything? What's that?
It's recessed.
How
Yeah, it's recessed in, so the two stronger materials are popping out.
how deep is the recess?
I've only got it about 6 inches right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then last comment about the rear facade, still on building principles and building materials, and we're kind of talking about both of those here. Is I'm assuming no windows in the back because you're right on the property line and you've got a limitation of how many openings you can have.
That's correct, and it's there's a request from the neighbors to not have a lot of light spillage, and so we've designed the units to where we can minimize the amount of windows back there, also tint them, and so that was the reasoning behind that. And the building does step down on this side just by a floor,
Right. So
from the Washington side, but
okay. Well, from the Joppa Road view, that's not a very attractive elevation. It looks very yeah. So I don't know if there's a way to restudy that or create some more windows or some more interest in the scoring pattern of the ethos or something. Maybe there is a top too, so there's something like I mentioned earlier, the way it meets the skyline at least could be treated something interesting in the back and all four sides. I don't know why the ethos in the back has two different colors.
One's to match the brick color because it ties in as it wraps around. It ties in and goes up for the massing.
Ties into the iron spot brick. Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's correct. And then the other side is standalone because it's floating because you have that outdoor space under the that white vertical.
Sure.
And so it's standalone. So in the way and everything's terminating really on an inside corner. So that was able to be what it was, just to kind of give us not such a gray building.
Okay. All right, John, those are all my comments.
Matt, thank you very much, especially for your detailed preparation. You obviously spent some time looking at this prior to the presentation. Kelly, do you have any comments?
Yes, I have a couple of questions or comments about the entry sequence. It seems to get lost along Washington Boulevard, which is where I believe it is. So if you could kind of talk a little bit about the entry sequence into the building. The arrival point is confusing. It kind of gets a little lost. There's no front door to the actual residential units themselves.
So Kelly, can you speak up a little bit? We're having trouble hearing you.
How about now?
I think that's better.
So you were asking about the entry sequence and kind of getting lost at arrival point. So vehicular wise, you'll come in from where? And that would be some visitor parking at that level. And then the security, where it says security and mail right there, that's all glazing. And so you've got the concierge desk and everything there. We would have directional signage, obviously, but we'd do it with overhead lighting, and we would do something in the ceiling to really draw you into that space. We don't want to create a cattle trough, but kind of encourage movement towards that security and mail area. So that's your secure point of entry. You also have that airlock that provides to the cafe and then also to that security and mail. And so you can enter there during the day. If you've got visitors coming over, they would have to transition through there. Or if you're coming to lease, your parents are coming to look at the property, so on and so forth, they would come through that location. Day-to-day use, so that you're not really having to pass through there. You've got your key fob, there's cameras. You go really into that middle leasing lounge area directly from the sidewalk. And we had I think an elevation that kind of showed how that would work. You come in and then you actually go up those steps into the elevator area. So that's what you would see there. What you're seeing here is a level 1 and level 2 split, just so you can see the two vehicular access points. The Joppa Road entrance into the deck is really just a resident entrance. You go, you put your car in, and you get in the elevators and go up. And so the entry expression's really just utilitarian there. But as you're coming from here, coming from the university, coming up, and then you would go to the center block and then go in the building and up. And that's just, that allowed us to align more of the vehicular visitor, the cafe, the leasing office, and everything on that upper level. And that's why we didn't put it on the lower level, because then it would just dig into the site. And so, but from a wayfinding standpoint, as being a student, you're coming in, it's not really a public facility. And so really that's why the cafe is exposed on the corner as it is to really, that's your public space. Everything else is private.
Right. So I think just in reference to some of the things that Matt said, as far as studying, I think this particular Ware corner where the cafe is very developed. And I think just you might want to explore the relationship between the outside and the inside experience. Just from a relationship between the two, it's not very apparent where you should be going. I get that it's a student building, but I think it just, so much attention was paid to this corner, which is great. But as you're kind of studying that elevation along Washington and maybe giving a little bit more prominence to the Joppa Road corner, take some in consideration just from the inside out, outside in relationship.
Sure.
That was the only points I had that Matt didn't already mention.
Matt, do you have any comments, Matt Renault?
Yeah, I'll just pick up on a couple things that Matt already picked up on. I too am concerned about the narrowness of the streetscape. I think it is accentuated by the double racing stripe of brick. I agree, expanding the pavers out at the corners would be ideal, but doing something to make that bill wider, if we can't get any more width there, would be important. The bike racks, they're right up against the building, but really those need about 8 feet of space. So I think on one of the site plans, you can see the bikes and they extend way out into the sidewalk. I think they don't work in their current location. So I think that needs to be looked at. I also really agree with the comment about the corner at Joppa Road. I think that is probably the primary corner. I see the art use there, but there wasn't a lot of description about it. So maybe at the end we could hear more about it. But this kind of feels like the utilitarian end of the building. I would have preferred to have that be the entrance into the building. I know it's easier to come in the middle, but the project across the street has their building entrance catty corner to there, and you could get a lot of pedestrian activity. I know the site's constrained. It would be great to have street trees along Washington as well. Also, there was a comment about the base of the building. I think that if we have walls and other built elements, those should probably match the architecture. So on this rendering, you can see a different material coming out of the ground plane, but it would be a lot stronger if the building felt like it came out of the ground versus kind of landing on these smaller site elements. Then on the roof area, just a couple of quick comments. I think the Towers Alliance had made the comment about the Washington Avenue frontage. I think the plan's done a nice job of breaking up especially on the third floor, getting some of those public uses. If there's any way to create a hint of some outdoor space on the third level, just if people are walking along the street on Washington, you get a hint of that. I know you have some conference rooms and things like that, but even an overlook or a space where somebody can kind of come outside and take a phone call, just the idea of people on this building, I think, is important. On the second floor, also those 3 trees there that are on the screen, they do a good job of softening the building, but really it's the neighborhood on the kind of the west side here that maybe those trees could be moved kind of to the edge of the building to help soften the building a bit more from the neighborhood. And then just a recommendation for the rooftop space. I would assume from this location, the view south is going to be pretty spectacular, looking back, over Towson and back towards Baltimore. But it seems like everything's oriented kind of to the east and to the north. So it's just a idea that maybe some of these amenities might want to be extended or reoriented that way to, again, kind of strengthen some of those spaces.
Is that it, Matt?
Yep, that's it. Thanks.
Okay, let's go to Joseph.
Yes, I'm here. Thanks, John. So usually this panel does not review for stormwater management, and we're not going to review on this one either. However, in the downtown Towson district guidelines, there are sections about environmental sustainability and how you are addressing and plan to address stormwater management. So could you speak to what you plan to do to address that?
Yes, this is Dick Matz. We've got 2 microbial retention facilities, basically on the 3rd level, and a fee in lieu for the remainder. And there, we also get some, I wouldn't say real stormwater management on the roof, but the landscaping on the roof also will add some absorption of rainwater. And the concept has been approved by the county.
Super, thank you. In terms of the sidewalk width around the building, it just feels awfully narrow. I'd like to see and study further the true pinch point around each of the 3 roads to understand that dimension. I'm having a hard time finding that. And as I look at the building across the street, the flats at 703, it certainly does have a prominent entrance at the corner that would be nice to mimic. It also has the Towson brick pattern around Washington and Joppa extended around. So that may be nice to mimic that on this one as well. But other than the other comments, I think I'm good from that side. So John, that's all for me.
This is Nick. This is Nick with Niles Bolton. I was going to comment real quick just so y'all will know. It's because it's come up a couple of times. So from the community art wall to Joppa Road is 18'6" to the back of curb. At the southeast corner from the community art room to the Washington back of curb is 11 feet. At center, where we have the benches and the bike parking and everything there, that's 9'8". At the cafe, Washington is close to 12 feet. The north side of the cafe to Ware Avenue is 14 feet. And then we're back around once you get to the other bike rack as you start going up Ware, it pinches down again, but it's around 8 feet there.
So this is Matt D'Amico. I'm just going to jump in here real quick. What, since you're talking about this, the dimension along Washington Avenue to the plant, you've got 3 or 4 planters. How narrow does the sidewalk get in those locations? I'm not talking, you're talking about dimensions you can to the face of the building.
That's correct. That's correct. So to the planters, you're going to have close to 5 feet. That's with the brick strip, the concrete sidewalk, and then the other brick strip. Well, the brick face. So actually, it's like 4'6" there.
This is John Demena. I'm just curious, and what about from the face of the overhanging building above to the curb?
So if we zoom in on this one, you can see there's a dashed line that shows the face of the building, but it will also be probably around 5 feet, 5 to 6 feet, depending on where you're at. but that's to the line, to that build to line that we have. So to the property line, there's no setbacks on this with the DT. So we push the pedestrian level back as to work with the plan here, and then overhung the rest of the building to give us a buildable, a buildable footprint for student housing type units.
Joe, are you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Cecily.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Cecily Bedwell. I think Matt covered many of the same comments. I'll echo the break in the EFIS to the other materials. I think there needs to be a very clear stopping and starting point and not try to match materials that are very difficult to match, especially the Neocera. I think that would be extremely hard to match in EFIS and not really true. It'd be better to pick your points at which that more expensive material can be used and
Sure.
otherwise transition. I like Matt's idea of the base of the building being the dark brick and being consistent, and then maybe where you have the slots of other color changing to be a shade or two lighter, to really try to differentiate the different materials rather than try to match, and in the end, I think, fail at achieving a good match. I think there's some design opportunities to use those materials. Also, Matt's, I think I thought the grouping of the windows was very interesting. I do echo Matt's concern of, maybe I think it's where the floor plates are, where there's a white band. I think you said maybe those are PTAC units, but I'm not sure if that's correct. Anyway, if those vertical groupings of windows could be consistently that darker material or dark punch to read, would be good to emphasize that. The other point that has not been made yet, and maybe go back to that page that has, page 34, I think shows it. The sidewalk materials should run across the entries, the vehicular entries into the garages. So here, yeah, this shows it pretty well. I echo everyone else's points of the two racing red stripes. I think, the red brick out by the curb works pretty well and probably ties in with the streetscapes around the nearby buildings, as what I could see on Google. But that second stripe doesn't work too well. And also the materials of the sidewalk really should come across, be continuous across the threshold point into the garages. The pedestrians need to rule the day, not the vehicles going in and out of the garages. Another point, I think you can see it in this image, the top is the streetlights. Just a question here, are those the standard and what's been used on the nearby streets? I couldn't really see consistently.
Yes, they're the BGE Towson standard, Cecily.
Okay, all right. Yeah, they do feel a little bit out of place, but with the streetscape, that's fine. I'm not gonna argue that point. A question on the M2 units. Those are the Murphy bed kind of micro units. Is there a drop down of the wall above the desks that shows that would allow light, natural light, to get to that second bedroom?
Page 43, Marta. Yes, and so if you zoom in on this, if you can, that is a low wall between the two desks.
Okay.
And so that does allow the natural light to come from the outside in. And so then there would be that would be like a low boy hot water heater below a usable shelf type element. So maybe that's 3 feet up, 3.5 feet. And then it would be a pass through really between those two spaces.
Okay, and just to be clear, I assume there's like a knockout panel then to get to the hot water heater if they need.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, understood. Thank you for answering that. Let's see. I agree also with the brick mezzanine. That whole corner on Joppa, I think, really does need to be cleaned up and strengthened. I mean, my notes kind of echo Matt's, but you know, the canted concrete column, that brick floating element, it just feels very cave-like, not very welcoming. Whereas the cafe corner does feel welcoming. I don't share the same concern as Matt does about the height. I think that's probably tall enough up at the other Ware corner. But this corner just feels brutalistic and not super welcoming. I would, if you're on this image, my other comment was, be nice to play with that Suffolk colors. It feels like a missed opportunity that, you know, I don't know if you can use the Neocera on the soffit, but it seems like that wants to be not a white color, but something that feels like that volume of that push out volume is one form rather than just a typical soffit. Let's see.
Can we go back to I want to talk about the Joppa real quick and have maybe a little dialogue on that?
Well, I think we're going to need to get through our comments. We have two more.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. I was just
my last comment is the knee wall has a brick cap, like a brick, and those are just prone to water and spalling issues. It'd be nice to rethink that. You have a lot of materials here that you're using. I think something else could be done there rather than that. You know, this kind of brick cap where we see everywhere that they fall apart after a while.
Yeah, that's good to know. That's good. Good.
In any event, those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Cecily. This is John Demena. I'm going to have my comments now. I kind of go back to the first comment Matt made as he opened his whole dialogue, because I agree 100% with him that it's a very aggressive size project on a very crowded site. My first reaction was, I really feel like as a developer, taking advantage of a lot of the things that the DT district gives you when developing the project, but I don't think we're getting a whole lot in return. I think the entrance for a building of this size is way understated. I struggle with it because the reality is if I'm a handicapped student coming up Washington Avenue, I can't get into the Washington Avenue area without going through the airlock at the cafe. It just seems a little awkward, the whole sequence. It's very understated. The overhangs and going out to that building line, while we have a little bit of a wider sidewalk below, well, it may be good for the site. It's not really good for the impression driving down the street. It makes for a very dramatic building, but I'm not sure what the streetscape experience is going to be. The open space provisions of the downtown Towson district are very clearly written that the open space is to be accessible to the public. So my interpretation, the open space that's on the upper terraces isn't really open space that the public gets the benefit of. This then gets reinforced back to the site being very crowded. In addition, the step backs for the upper level open space, which creates some relief on facades, I think is, I'm not sure if it was Kelly or Joe, pointed out, it would be really nice to have some of that relief on the more prominent facades where most of the people are going to see it. The reality is pedestrian traffic is really coming to what is the least developed portion of the building, which is where that art space is. That really does beg to be where the entrance wants to be. And I believe that was also one of the comments that planning had in their review. Beyond that, I definitely echo just about every comment that other members of the board has made. So do any members of the board have any other comments?
This is Donald. I wanted to add.
I'm sorry, Donald, I missed you, didn't I?
That's okay. I wanted to say that I agree with virtually all the comments that have been made. I think, you know, it's a difficult site. The geometries for the student program have been worked out, and I think if that were the control, I think it's been worked out pretty well. But I agree with you that so much of Towson, and particularly with the new zoning, expects a great deal more of what happens on the streetscape. Restaurants opening out, been closing streets to get more pedestrian traffic at certain times for the restaurants near on the adjacent streets. It really does concern me, and I think needs to be restudied fairly dramatically, that what happens along Washington Avenue and at the intersection of Joppa Road as well. I'd like to see some thought given to making a statement of the entrance, which has been said, but also trying to find a way to get some relief to the facade on Washington Avenue, where perhaps some of the open space could spill out to the street. I think it's really a missed opportunity to make such a heavy looking building coming down so close to the sidewalk and over the sidewalk that I really think there's opportunities to revisit that and make it a much better project. And that's it.
Thank you, Donald. Well, we have a lot of comments that were brought forth. I think all of them, based on what I've heard, you know, is going to require the developer and the team to really go back to the drawing boards and restudy this project. And I think what I'd like to do is, one, we need to make a motion to how we move forward for discussion among the panelists. I think it should be, you know, our motion should be for the developer to come back and seriously address the comments that were raised in the meeting. I think as a team, we're going to have to review the minutes to make sure what comes through is clear and concise, because I know all of us, included myself, we have a tendency to go off on tangents. I'd be curious of other opinions from other members of the panel.
Hey, John, this is Matt D'Amico. I would agree with you. I think there's a number of things that need to be restudied. I think we all pointed them out. Hopefully it's been recorded so that can be put into minutes and be clarified to the team. I think all those things need to be restudied and brought back to us.
Matt, do you want to make that as a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion that we request the items that the panel pointed out be restudied and brought back and shared with us to and present to us how these comments have been reconciled. Do you want me to get more specific?
This is Jennifer, Matt. Yes, I think that you all are going to have to be pretty specific in what you would like the applicant to redress.
All right.
You know, Jennifer, I'm going to tend to disagree with you. It's going to take us as long to go back through all the comments to incorporate them into a motion as we spent to get to this point. I think it's going to be fair to the developer if we include as part of the minutes
Can somebody please mute, or there's a lot of background noise. I don't know what's going on right now. Thank you. Go ahead, John.
So I really think we need to go through the comments that were made and prioritize them and give them to the developer in written form. I worry there was so much nuance and some subtleties between the various speakers. To go back now and reword those, I think it puts a lot of pressure on the next 10 minutes to get it correctly. And we've just been speaking about it for, close to an hour.
Hi, John. This is Walter Plosk. I'm a principal with Niles Bolton Associates. I guess I wanted to kind of go back to Jennifer's comment and your response to that. In the typical process like this, I think we would really like to see the comments that reflect the downtown overlay zoning requirements be brought forth, and that's what we can address. A lot of the comments that the panel went through were very subjective. So I think we do need that clarity on what is required to meet the requirements in order to bring back a revised plan back to the panel.
So if maybe I could suggest, and John, you as chair, I was hearing from the panel members as they were going through their comments or commentary. I think there was some general consensus about several items. And I don't know if you were sensing that pattern yourself, but particularly I'd say, the pedestrian scale aspect, the widths of the sidewalks, addressing these corners more, making the building seem less dense, less dark at the street level. Those are the first few that come to mind, but just you want to make a motion to say, have them come back and relook at the design. I get that, but maybe some guiding places to start, or some things that the panel, through their overall comments.
I agree with those, Jennifer, but I also, like you mentioned, sort of the dark overhangs on the underside of the building. Well, that's just a rendering too, right? I mean, if it's a lighting requirement, that's easy to address.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's subjective. It doesn't relate to the development plan.
Correct.
All right, this is Matt. Let me take a stab at this, and I'll try to follow the design guidelines. So let me go guideline by guideline. So in regards to block configuration site design, we're asking them to restudy both corners of the Joppa Road intersection and the Ware intersection. With respect to Joppa Road, it's to reconcile so many different pieces, the angled column, wrapping the corner with glazing, making that more welcoming, studying the potential for that to be an entrance. With respect to Ware, it's studying the possibility of raising the height of the cafe space. Let's see, with respect to downtown open space, it's to study the streetscape. We think the double parallel racetrack brick banding, study the potential for more plaza-like experience at either intersection. The 4-foot 6-inch dimension is not going to be acceptable. So that needs to be studied, not just the curved building face, but the clear pedestrian width. How the building entrances meet the sidewalk in terms of downtown open space and streetscape, making it more, more pronounced, more evident. With regards to building principles and architecture, it's studying the materials, the transition between materials, the Neocera to the ethos, studying the window patterns, the vertical groupings to create more accentuation between them. Studying the possibility for the roof to have a more interesting skyline. Does that summarize everything pretty well?
So Matt, what about concerns that the site might be over-designed? Overdeveloped. Let me choose a different site.
Right. I know exactly what you're saying. I'm trying to understand how to put that into the context of the downtown guidelines. I think I would say study all the things mentioned with the mindset of how can those things be reconciled to reduce the apparent aggressiveness of the program on the site. It's unless you have a better way of wording it, John.
Well, I think the appropriate thing is that we clearly put in our comments that there is concern, and you know, in my particular case, all aspects and having worked on the Towson walkability plan, being part of the Towson UDAT in 2006, and knowing how much work it's taken planning to get the downtown plan implemented. You know, I struggle within the context of the spirit of the site aspects of the downtown plan, whether I would ever able to approve this project. And that's me personally, I'm not speaking for the whole board, because obviously, you know, it's going to be the majority vote. But as currently conceptualized with the site, I'm going to have problems approving this project in anything close to the form it is now, because I think we're not getting anything for it. We've got these massive overhangs, which look really good in renderings. I'm not sure what they're going to look like and how they're going to feel walking down the street. You know, it makes their units work better, makes their pro forma work better. And the downtown district was set up to get rid of, you know, the traditional zoning process and gave great authority to the panel. So that's one person's opinion. You know, I don't want the developer to come back and nibble around the edges and we pick up 6 inches here, 6 inches there, but we lose the big picture issues.
It's a fair comment. I would say so let's add that to the motion, studying the program, the density, the overhangs, and give some thought to, you know, reducing that, perhaps reducing the program.
And if the members on the panel, you know, collectively feel that you know, they disagree with what I'm saying, speak now, because, you know, obviously the body, it's the collection of voices. So I'm just speaking my concerns because I don't want those to get lost in the shuffle of some of the more detailed specific comments.
This is Joe Eusafero. So John and Matt, I do appreciate your comments and agree with a lot of that. I think that from a development of this site, boy, I'm really excited to see a plan, and I'm really excited to see something move forward. I think that there really needs to be a rethink to the design, all of which we talked about, but from an overall moving forward and developing a site I'm happy about it. So agree with the size, the scale, all of that. I think needs to be significantly restudied. However, I'm of the opinion, I like seeing this, and I'm for the development of this.
This is Cecily Bedwell. I would echo that, Joe. This is a tough site. It's a narrow site. I think part of the latitude that was given is to make sure that these sites downtown are able to be redeveloped with some latitude for that. All that being said, I think there should be some attention paid to improving the public realm. So while I personally would like this to be a buildable project, that that the development isn't overburdened and is able to be constructed and a benefit to both the community and the developer. I do think the public realm needs to be studied, but not at the detriment of making the project unsustainable in terms of a financial point of view.
So if there's no other additional comments, does anyone want to second the motion that Matt made?
I'll second it, Donald.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Motion carries. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your presentation. The minutes for this, Marta, how fast or do you anticipate it to take? How long do you think it'll take to get the minutes issued for this project?
This is really, I think at least a few days, maybe a week, because we need to go through different levels of approval from management too. So we're writing and then we're reviewing collectively. And this is really comprehensive task.
Okay. Marta, thank you very much. Gentlemen, thank you.
John, this is Jennifer. So can we just make it clear to everybody that is called in and participating on this? The motion is to have them come back, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, Marta, do you want to tee up the next project?
Sure. Okay, I think we're ready for the next project. Jason, are you here? Jason Vittori?
Marta, this is Alex Kopicki with Solstice Partners. Good evening, everyone. My attorney can't seem to get into the panelist realm.
Can you unmute him, Marta? Sorry, this is Jennifer. He's saying he's muted.
Let me try to do this. I did this and not sure why he's, okay. Let me try it very quickly.
Okay.
He was on the list of the participants, but at this point, I don't see him. I don't know where he is now, because he was on the panelist list, and now I don't see him. Let me look on other list. Okay, I unmuted him, and Jason, you're panelist again. Hi, Jason.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Do I have an echo?
yes.
Okay, I'm gonna get off my,
Is everyone, sorry, if everyone who's not speaking right now can mute themselves, that would help us very much. Thank you so much for everyone who's doing this.
can you still hear me now?
Much better, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I had my phone on trying to belts and suspenders it. I apologize. I've got, you don't care about my technical problems, and we've all been here a long time. So moving forward, I want to introduce the team that's here. If there's a question that has something to do with engineering or landscape architecture, we have Thomas Shekels from MRA. If there's a question for the developer who just spoke, Alex Kopicki, he's with Solstice Partners, and Alex and I work together on the property immediately next door to this that was redeveloped back in 2013. There was some reference to a case in 2013 in the comments that we received from planning today at about 5:15. And then we have Alec Deary from Grid Architects, who can answer any architecture questions. Again, by way of background, previously for Orthopedic Associates next door at 910 Frederick Road, we had submitted a development proposal. What we did there, much like what we did here, is we went to the Development Review Committee, or DRC, asking for our development to be processed by way of a limited exemption, which is purely a procedural thing, not an actual substantive approval. And we did the same thing in our case. In that case, we then came to you, the design review panel, and got that approved, got ultimately a plan approved, and then we went and sought zoning relief. While we were seeking zoning relief, a bill 36-13 was passed. That bill conspicuously ended up obviating the need for any of the zoning relief we had requested. And it was many of the same issues, I think, that we encounter here. The property is zoned BL CCC in the front and residential, or DR, in this particular case, DR 5.5 in the back, as is much of, I think, the Catonsville area. But what the Catonsville area generally experiences is a lack. What kind of the bigger issues in Catonsville are is there's a lot of traffic on Frederick Road, and there isn't as much of a mix of uses. Most of the uses on Frederick Road are retail uses, so all the parking in the area gets used at the same time. So I think how that bill 3613 applied was if you are doing kind of a mix of uses and things that aren't maximizing the parking, so you're actually adding to the parking that is the biggest problem right now, which is the evening and restaurant time, we're not going to consider you to have to get that an approval for business parking in a residential zone, which is being proposed in this case. Providing a second means of access to Winners Lane, which this plan is certainly proposing, also is another issue that addresses the and the same thing happened in 910 Frederick Road's case. It provides a certain amount of relief from cars pouring onto Frederick Road. People that live in the area that are going to a doctor's appointment have the option of going to getting out of the property to a different way. So with the property, you see 900 Frederick Road is a liquor store. It's right on the corner of Winters Lane. If you went to probably page 10 of what you're scrolling through right now, or this plan works. It's the corner business, not that page, but 10, or it was like 2 or 3. That business is there. I know from experience going to a restaurant there, Catonsville Gourmet, which is across the street. If anybody has gone to Catonsville and dined, they have a BYOB, and you can walk across the street to that liquor store. It's kind of this fluid situation that's there. What I think you guys have highlighted is we're proposing office, medical office, and we had heard that maybe you wanted a front retail component, so we are proposing a space for retail on the ground floor that faces out to Frederick Road. And in rear, the access will be to the office/medical office uses that will go up to the third floor, second and third floor. So having gone through the process, and I'm kind of, I substantively want to address some of the comments that were made in planning's report. I think for site design, there was only one comment, and it said that the Office of Zoning Review should confirm any zoning relief, for lack of a better term, that may be needed, we certainly are going to do that. As was the case for the 910 Frederick Road project, we were able to get a zoning verification letter for multiple things. One, that business parking in a residential zone under the law passed by Bill, or codified under Bill 3613, is permitted by right. Furthermore, the RTA buffers that apply to business parking in a residential zone do not apply under Bill 3613 for properties such as this, where if you're allowed to do business parking in a residential zone by right. You can see, and that's when you have an existing parking. And as you can see, if you're looking at this plan right here, just kind of above where it says proposed site, the dotted line is the zoning line, delineation line. And behind that, there is an existing parking lot. So we, think pretty strongly that zoning will believe or agree with us that, much like was the case when there was a redesign of the church parking lot for 910 Frederick Road, which is to the left of our proposed site, we kind of fall under that gambit. As far as the form and image, it doesn't look like there was any substantive comments, and there was a recommendation to approve this. For the open space and landscape design, there was some proposal to do sitting areas in the front and back of the site.
Jason, this is John. Can we move on to the presentation?
Sure.
Some of it might be easier for us to understand once we've seen what the proposal is.
Okay. Well, then I think I'll turn it over to Alec Deary and let him get through it and address the comments as they come up.
Okay, thank you very much. Happy to be here. Martha, can you go to the next slide, which looks at the context? So really our fundamental approach in working on this project was to really understand what would it mean to put commercial office building program with retail on this street, on that site. And we spent a lot of time in Catonsville, walking up and down Frederick Road. We did attend or go to some of the dining spots. So we spent some time trying to understand, what it's like there, and also in looking at that, really understand like the kind of nuance and subtlety of Catonsville, like what makes Catonsville interesting. And our sense of that is that there's a lot of idiosyncrasy. There's lots of different kinds of materials and color and fenestration patterns and massing patterns and forms. So our building tries to reconcile that, but there aren't necessarily lots of obvious clues. And so we were looking for kind of subtle clues. So if you go through some of the rest of these slides, I'm going to try to make this pretty quick and then answer questions that you have. So the next slide, Mark, you got the next slide, just slide 5. This is just continuing down. This is the other side of the road. If you go to the next slide, these buildings represent our immediate context. So the building on the top left is the liquor store. The building on the top right is the building that's owned by the same property owner. We don't see this building as trying to create like a campus that mirrors that building. And in fact, we spent a lot more time trying to understand kind of materiality as it relates to the church across the street and some of the other stone buildings. And we think that what we've come up with tries to reflect all of that in a way. Next slide, please. And these are just, looking at the kind of retail commercial context, the use of kind of horizontal banding. Sometimes those bands are broken up. Sometimes those project forward. The roof lines are often fairly idiosyncratic. Next slide. This is just looking closer at some of the storefront systems, whether there's, small base, whether it's lots of glass, whether there's a kind of porch element, canopies, signage. Go to the next slide, please. One of the nuances that we are especially attracted to is there's all these moments where and I'm not sure that it actually is the property line, the way the property lines are working, but there's all these little slices that create these openings or moments for entrance, and they create, rather than, in some cases, obviously they're canopies, but in lots of the cases, they're actually creating recesses in the surface of the facade to create the entrance. Next slide, please. Keep going. So here's the landscape plan. The building essentially is a parallelogram, and we're using the kind of property lines that run away from the street to kind of set that up. And then we're reconciling those kind of slices to create entries by turning the walls perpendicular to those property lines. We are trying to maximize as much green as we can around the building. We feel like we've done that pretty well in terms of keeping the building as narrow as possible. There are two different entrances, one entrance on the street for the retail space, and then there's access from the back into a lobby which accesses the commercial office spaces above. Next slide, please. This is a lighting diagram, which I won't go into unless you would like to talk about that. Next one. So these are just a series of diagrams, and I'm just going to have Marta flip through them really quickly. I think they're self-explanatory. Can you go a little slower, please? Back to the beginning. Maybe like 2 seconds per slide. So just looking at the massing, and then the next slide is really referencing the setback. The next slide kind of mirrors that on the backside and flips it to create an overhang for the commercial office entry. Next slide. And then we kind of enter into the back edge for there's a ramp and some stairs that deal with some grade in the back. Next slide. This is just showing you the core. That's just so you can understand when we get into the elevations and the massing where that those sidewalls are kind of treated as party walls, and we push the core up against the edge on that side. Next slide. And this is just looking at the fact that in this context, it's fairly typical that the side walls or the party walls are treated with fairly simple punched openings. Next slide. And then the street surface is treated in a very different way often and has more glass and has kind of a rhythm to it. Next slide. Next slide. And then here you see, and you'll see this better in the renderings, but this idea of using this kind of little slice to create some interest on the surface of the facade and also to create the retail entrance. Next slide, please. And next slide. And this is just to show that we are well within the height requirement and the canopy. We are setting back, even though, as you can see, it's not necessarily required. We do think that at the scale of the street, the 2-story makes a lot more sense, and that setting it back to create some kind of amenity for the 3rd floor office space has some value. And then this is just looking at materiality. So our immediate context are a bunch of stone buildings. So we actually went out on site, probably 30 different brick pallets, and put them up against the stone, particularly on the church, and are also thinking about the kind of relationship between the gray stone and then the beige, accent materials. Next slide. So when you zoom in on that, so we have 2 materials. In these, scanning these or photographing these never quite do it justice, but the brick is really actually closely matches the stone on the church and some of the other stone buildings around. And then we're using it's a very light anodized bronze aluminum for the accent materials. So to kind of play off the buff color stone elements. And then the next few images are looking at it in 3 dimensions. So this is coming from the west or heading westbound. And this is where you're seeing the elevator lobby in the corner as the corner on the 2nd floor peels away, and the setback to the terrace on the top. Next view. And this is coming the other direction. And you can see the little slice that occurs to create the entrance to the retail space and the overhang at the back for the retail or commercial office entrance. And then the next slide. And then this is the back entrance itself. I think the rest of our slides get into the elevations. I don't know that we can kind of jump through them. They do show signage locations. They get into a little bit of the detail and materiality. We are planning to have a brick pattern
in the brick, not changing the material itself, but changing the texture or the alignment of the stacking of the brick to create a kind of banding through the window zone on the sides. But yeah, that's really it. I think we have the plans at the end in case you want to get into that. But essentially, it's a core that's stacked, and on the second and third floor, it has fairly open office at the moment. It's a core and shell project, so we haven't got into the layout of that. So I think that's it from my standpoint. Happy to answer questions or listen to comments.
Alec, thank you very much. Marta, do we have any community speakers?
Yes, we have one community speaker, Mr. Sebastian Cianciolo. And Mr. Sebastian, I will going to unmute you and you will be able to speak for 2 minutes. Can you hear us?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me okay?
Can everyone hear Mr. Sebastian?
I can hear him fine.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for all your hard work, you guys. I had no clue you guys spent so much time the evening going over these projects. I really commend you guys for it. I am representing One Winters Lane, which is that one small duplex that is totally wrapped with both entrances. We are on Winters Lane. Just like to speak briefly, we have concerns of the water flow and the landscaping plan, and also the light post. Just want to make sure how tall that light post is that is on the corner. I don't know if you can see on the side drawing where One Winters is. I don't know if you want to get, because it didn't really, none of the plans really showed the placement of that, but it's immediately planned south of the exit that goes out to Winters, and it is immediately north of the liquor store. So it is a duplex, and currently I didn't see any cuts of the asphalt landscaping section that adjoins the property line. I guess that would be your north-south, right behind One Winters and right behind the entrance to the lobby, to the retail lobby. I don't know if you can expand that or see that, but the site plan is probably the best plan. If you have a landscaping plan.
Marta, if you go to slide 12, that's the landscape plan, maybe clearer.
Yeah, okay, that's a good plan. Winters Lane is that, excuse me, 1 and 3, number 1 and number 3, Winters Lane is that unpaved section on Winters Lane, okay? That property is totally surrounded by blacktop, as you can see it, and Winters Lane on the east side. In 2018, during the flooding in Catonsville, we had about 8 feet of water in our basement due to the runoff of the existing parking lot behind the medical center. Just so you know, there's no curb, it's just asphalt and water was just coming in. So I am concerned of the existing water flow because all the water flow on the parking behind the medical building, or this building basically flows northward around these two. It goes north and then it goes slightly east and back to the Rogers. So all the water flow is going to go to these 2 islands. I don't see any cutouts at the curbs to help the water flow from damming up. If we get another torrential rain like we did in 2018, it'll jump the curb. Also, there's no section in that landscape island between the 2 islands, that landscaping strip that runs along that north-south property line, right behind the number 1 and number 3 Winters Lane. There is about a 3-foot retaining wall there right now, where there's an asphalt just basically sitting on top of that wall without a curb. So with this green area now, what happens? What happens to that existing retaining wall? How do we deal with the water, or how is that wall being built? I didn't see a section for that. So we are definitely concerned of another major water problem going into 1 Winters and 3 Winters. So what I like to see, and I don't know if this is the correct forum, I tried calling Baltimore County storm management, but couldn't get anybody there. Basically, I would like to see some kind of curb cut behind at the island on the north side as you go outside Winters, and also another curb cut or island cut that will help that water flow from those curb lines, so they don't have to dam up along the island and try and work its way around the island out to Winters Lane. That's a major concern. The retaining wall at the landscaping planter area, that's another concern, is how that's being dealt with to relieve water as it goes through this green area. Where does it go on the existing retaining wall at these, in the back of these 2 buildings, in the back of these two homes? So that's a second concern. And then the other concern is really the light post that is right there. It's going to be shining right into a second floor of the residence, unless it's the proper type of downward type lighting that will not have a lot of spill, or light going into the windows. So those are the major concerns. I would also like to see more green to buffer between this commercial area and a residential area. And those are my major concerns.
Okay. Sebastian, thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. What I'd like to do is to go to the panel. I'd like to start with Don Can first.
Thank you. Overall, I think it's a very successful project. Looked at the area, I think the design team's very sensitive to what's happening there, and I think with the sort of hodgepodge of signage and building types up and down the street there, I think that this can be very successful. The only concern I would have is to be sure that the location of signage is appropriate, so it doesn't conflict with the cleanliness of the building. But I think overall, I think it's very successful.
Thank you, Don. Joe, why don't you go next, and maybe you can talk a little bit about what you think is going to happen from a stormwater standpoint.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Joe Usafero. So to just speak a little bit about Mr. Sebastian's comments about drainage. This panel does not review for stormwater management, grading, and we will not make recommendations in terms of curb cuts. However, the county has many levels of review that they go through. They go through a stormwater management concept, in this case, perhaps development, and then a final. The development plans review reviews grading, and so I guess, Mr. Sebastian, where I'm going is the county does review for that. They review for water coming off-site from this property onto perhaps your property, and they do guard against that. If you do want to reach out to the county agencies, feel free to go ahead and do that.
I'm not sure if I'm still alive, but I did try to call them, and they told me my point of contact initially would be Miss Marta. And I talked to several people there. I'd like to get a contact name because I would like to go ahead and discuss this with them.
Okay, sure. Yeah, Marta, if you could provide, either someone in EPS stormwater or development plans review, that would be helpful.
Sure. Thank you.
In terms of the layout, I think it works well. I do have a question or two as it relates to the access point from Frederick Road. Is there, and perhaps this is a question for either the engineer, architect, or developer, is there access easements that go through and parking easements through the site?
This is Alex Kopicki, developer, Solstice Partners. The curb cuts that you see here proposed are more or less where there are existing curb cuts. We are currently in discussions with the owner of the liquor store with regards to cross parking easement, and most likely we will have to, extend that cross parking easement for access points to provide continuity to the two Winters Lane curb cuts and the Frederick Road curb cuts.
Okay, super, thank you. And my only other comment relates to the dumpster, and it's tough to see, but is there any kind of material screen around the dumpsters, or is it only the planting around it? Any kind of fence or enclosure?
Thomas, do you want to?
Seems like they're leaving all the questions for the developer today, so everybody will get demerit on my team when we're over this. But we currently, I think it's just quite honestly, it's just an oversight. We're not opposed to screening. We were so focused on the building elevations and the massing that I don't think that we've actually really given it a whole lot of thought. I think currently what you see, in the area and what we did at 910 Frederick Road was, something simple, a wooden slat fence with kind of a heavy gauge metal post and then heavy landscaping.
Okay. Great. Yeah, I think something consistent to the adjacent properties would be fine. And John, that's all I had. Thank you.
Joe, thank you. Kelly, would you like to go next?
Sure thing. I think it's a great project. My one comment echoes Donald's in that I'd like to see a more detailed signage package and a more detailed lighting package as it applies to the overall massing of the building. But other than that, I think it's a great project.
Thank you.
Matt Renault.
Just a couple minor comments. I think the architecture of the building looks great. I think the renderings on the Frederick Road streetscape, I think that I appreciate the angle for the door. It seems like it gets just a little bit lost. I'd love to just see a little bit more that could highlight that, whether it's a building canopy or a little something on the ground plane just to highlight that that's an entrance to the building. It seems much more like it's meant to be entered from the rear. Just maybe a little attention there. Understand that there's underground utilities along the streetscape, so we can't get street trees, but might encourage you just to look to see if you could get a couple trees on the east side of the building along the parking. There's a couple trees there that exist today that are coming out, so it's just something to consider. The other is just with the expansion of the parking lot, you're right up against the parking for the medical center next door, so that you're completing the parking lot, but there's no way to drive. People will drive through there because that's what people do, but there's not an actual drive lane there. So it's just something to think about and consider. And then same thing with what Joe had brought up, just the dumpsters, especially that one right at the building entry off of Frederick Road. The dumpster is just right there when you come in. Maybe that could get looked at a little bit more. Other than that, I thought it looked really great.
Thank you. We'll definitely look at that.
Matt, thank you. Cecily.
Great, thank you all. I'll just echo some of the comments. I think the building massing and detailing, the brick especially, and using the pattern brick or the rotated brick for giving the building some texture and pattern while staying true to the material is nicely done. The cap on the building is nicely executed, and the subtle moves in massing, step backs that are a little bit more than subtle, but the subtle chamfering in at the entry. My main comment, I think someone else mentioned, but is the signage. Just wanted to go in depth on that a little bit. I think what's shown now are just sort of these white panels that attach to the different planes of the building where signage is expected. But I think I'd really like to see some more intent behind that, like there was with the building design, something like pin-mounted letters with halo lit behind it that rather than detracts from then the architecture feels like it's an appropriate addition to the architecture. I think, something that could be subtly applied to the building. A canopy would also offer opportunities along the front to have some signage rather than just trying to adhere signage to the building. So I think that's something that can be thought through. Let's see. I think there was a comment from staff on providing bike racks. I would like to see if that can be looked at on site. It seems like you have enough room around the building to allow for room to accommodate those. And that's it. Those were my comments that I had.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cecily. Matt D'Amico.
Sure. I really like the building a lot. I think I applaud you. I think it's really cool. I'm happy with it. A couple of small comments. Signage has already been mentioned. I think I'm just going to add to that retail signage. I'm not sure where it would go, so I think that probably needs to be thought through. Assuming you're going to have a retail tenant, at least one, maybe multiple. I have no idea. So understanding how that's going to work. There's a drop off in the grade in this image you can see on the right hand side, and I guess it's a concrete base, the foundation of the building, but it wraps around the side of the building, and then in the back it's much taller, and it looks as though there's a texture or something to it. So I don't know if there's a way to be consistent with how that foundation base ties around the building. If you go to the back elevation, you'll see what I'm talking about. Or the rendering, your rear rendering elevation. I think there's an image of maybe somebody sitting on that wall or something. Right, see that wall? And is that, so there's what's the material below the brick on that facade right there that we're looking at? Is that what comes around the front and goes under the storefront on that corner? Maybe it doesn't matter. I'm just saying maybe if it all kind of ties together, it feels like this nice base that's wrapping around and tying into that wall, and then comes around the front and becomes the base of the storefront where the grade drops away. Whatever material or texture or whatever that is, it would be nice to be consistent. It wasn't, couldn't tell what it was in the front. Does that make sense? You know what I'm talking about?
That makes a lot of sense. I think the clarity of the base and like the way that it touched the ground and the ramps and the seat walls, all that stuff, I think is probably least developed, and the signage too, like in terms of how much time we spent on it. So, totally agree that that all that stuff needs to reconcile somehow.
So go to slide 28. There you go. See that where the grade drops off, and that it'd be nice if that base under the storefront where the grade drops off ties into your base, and it just doesn't feel like a separate concrete. It feels like it's part of the building rather than just slid underneath the storefront. And then my only other comment was I totally get the storefront color and the bronze trying to match the buff. I just wonder if 10 years from now we're going to look at it and go, I wonder if that was a bad choice. I like it. I think it's really cool. Just make sure you're going to be, happy with it for a long time. Those are all my comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you all on the panel for your detail. I have no additional comments. So with that, does someone on the panel want to make a motion? Don, do you want to give it a shot?
Okay, I would move that we approve the project as presented with the resolution, as we were just speaking of the base of the building as it wraps around the east side, that we provide appropriate enclosure for the dumpsters, and the signage package that particularly for the retail be thought, and any exterior lighting as well be thought out in the final design.
Do any panel members feel that anything needs to be added?
To provide bike.
Okay, and what I would expand upon what Don said, I think the parking lot lighting adjacent to the residence should be a shielded light so it doesn't spill light over into the adjacent property. There are no other comments. Does someone want a second?
I'll second that motion. This is Cecily.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Nice project. Good luck with it.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Marta, I guess we're on to our last project.
Sorry, I need to bring back.
So this is Joe Yusufero, Chairman Demena, and members of the panel. I will need to recuse myself on this job. I'm going to be presenting and part of the project team. So for the record, I just wanted to mention that.
Appreciate, thanks for the comments. I know you had already warned me about this the other day.
May we start? So good evening. If everybody could mute your phones, I'm hearing an echo. Again, my name is Joe Yusufero. I work for Bowler. With me this evening, we have Jen Bast, who is a program manager also with Bowler. We have Jonathan Ross, who is the director of construction, owner's representative for Atlantic Realty Company. And we have Craig Bennett, who is a principal architect with CBA Architects, the project architect. So we are here this evening proposing a daycare facility in Perry Hall. Martha, if you could go to the next slide, please. The location is again in Perry Hall. It is the long kind of irregular shaped. If everybody could mute their phones, I'm hearing a lot of background noise. It is the long irregular shaped shopping center right at the center of the site. The road to the left is Bel Air Road that goes north-south. Ebenezer Road is the road to the top, and across the street is Perry Hall Middle and Perry Hall Elementary School. Within this center is Outback Steakhouse, several different retail users and other users. Next slide, Marta. The main parking field is severely underutilized, and the owner here, Atlantic Realty, came up with a daycare user to fill a small section of the parking field. Next slide. This is just the zoning BLCCC. These are context photos looking down Ebenezer into the site. And I will say that the retail portion of the site was invested over the last couple of years by about $1.1 million. The owner, Atlantic Realty, has did significant facade renovations, signage improvements, and increased landscaping throughout the site to create a more appealing customer experience. So next slide, please, Marta. This is the black and white site plan that's somewhat tough to read, but at the top center along Ebenezer is the existing parking field. And what we are proposing is a 7,200 square feet daycare with about a 5,000 square foot outside fenced play area for children. So Marta, if you could go to the next one, it might be a little bit easier to read. Thank you. This should be the colored rendering.
Sorry, I think computers start getting tired. I'm trying to go to the next slide, but
Marta, no problem whatsoever. I think we're all getting tired here. I'm going to make this quick. So from a design standpoint, yeah, there's the color one. Perfect. I think we'll stay here for a little bit. Again, daycare, outside play, really tried to tuck it into the kind of the outside parking area, if you will. We tried from a landscape standpoint to mimic the existing street trees along Ebenezer. Further, we tried to mimic the existing parking trees within the islands, and this aerial is not entirely representative. There has been some significant improvements in the center. So I think, Marta, as we continue on, I'd like to flip to the next plan's a schematic landscape plan. Again, pretty tough to read. So if you could go to slide number 9, and I would ask Craig Bennett, who's the principal with CBA Architects, just to talk a little bit about the architecture, what was designed, and then we'll wrap in 2 more slides. So Craig, if you're out there, you can unmute.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine.
Okay, let me start. We were the architect for the general renovation of the whole shopping center. And that encompassed all the way from retrofitting Giant all the way down to Perry Hall Lanes. And that center consisted of like 4 different architectures, and we using paint and adding cast stone base and painted metal roofs and new lighting. We were able to unify those 4 pieces, one being Giant, one being where Italian Sensation building is, then the Ace Wine Bar all the way through the main shopping center. So mimicking that same architecture, we carried that onto the daycare center, where it's got cast stone on the exterior with gray and ephes with white trim, mimicking the main shopping center. You see on the slide there. We also use 4-sided architecture where we have awnings and glass on all 4 sides of the building. There's signage, tenant signage facing over the main entry, which faces the main part of the shopping center. There's also kind of sign facing Ebenezer. The child's play areas shows on the current slide of a gray fence, which is compatible with the colors of the building. And we also encompassed the exterior lighting of the daycare center, wall sconces. We did a pop-up at the entry of the daycare facing the shopping center. And I think that's about all. Did I cover it all, I think?
Thank you, Craig. And Jonathan, as I mentioned, Jonathan's the owner of Atlantic Realty. Anything, Jonathan, to chime in with, or we can wrap there and ask the panel for any comments that they may have? Okay. Well, I think that concludes our presentation. So, Chairman Demita, back to you.
Thank you, Joe. Marta, do we have any community speakers?
We have one community speaker. He provided. Sorry if everyone can mute themselves because there's a lot of echo. Is that better now? Still, we hear a lot of echo. Someone is creating. Is that better now? Okay, so we have comments. Is everyone can hear me or still hard? John, can you hear me?
We can hear you fine, Marta.
Okay, we have some comments from James Licherovich, and he is president and pastor of church at Kid Zone Learning Center. This is existing nonprofit daycare within 200-300 feet of proposed new daycare. I'm trying to read because he sent several messages. Some of his comments will be outside of the purview of this board. He just wanted to mention this is already 220 student daycare before after school care opening in the adjacent parking lot. There should be consideration given to the impact on surrounding business.
Sorry, wait, Marta, Mr. Bennett and Mr. Demena, can you please mute your microphones? Thank you.
He also mentioned there will be a major traffic will be a major issue during the school year. Ebenezer Road against, which is against. Sorry, I'm trying to read his comment. But this new daycare is proposed is a parking lot both morning. I'm not sure what he wants to just say, but he's saying that there are. The area to be occupied by this new daycare is usually full of cars. And also, he says, developers should know that there is a new 24-hour gym opening that may present issues with vandalism, trash, and damage to this new facility. It has many neighbors concerned. And trash control is an issue. Where will be their dumpster? Sorry, I'm trying to read his comments. So where dumpster will be located and how will they control trash? It has always been a problem with the other businesses in that shopping center. I think I tried to read everything he sent it to us. Yes, that's it. There is, we don't have any more public participants for this project.
Thank you, Marta. Kelly Ennis, would you like to go first?
Sure. I think the building itself is very monolithic. I'm not sure of the placement and how it relates to the existing shopping center, which after looking at on Google Maps is quite large. I'm just going to pull up the PDF as well. But really, my biggest comment, it looks like a monolithic block. Really, my only comment as it applies to the architecture of the building.
Kelly, no other comments?
Nope.
John, I believe she said she had no other comments.
Okay, thank you. I was having trouble hearing. Matt Renault, would you like to go next?
Sure, just a couple minor comments. The first is I'm assuming that shade will be provided in the play area as part of the equipment, but I think that's going to be important to have that be successful. The second was some of the trees in the parking lot are tilia trees, which have a tendency to drop a lot of junk and litter. I would suggest maybe switching that tree type out. I think the staff report mentioned the wall material along Ebenezer, just maybe looking at that a bit more. And then really my biggest comment was just on the south side of the building, facing the parking lot. The building's just sitting right up on 10 or 11 feet of concrete. It'd probably be nice to soften that a little bit. The sidewalk definitely doesn't need to be that wide. So maybe just greening that up a little bit to make that a little more welcoming out on the parking side could be an improvement.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Sure.
Cecily, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. This is Cecily. One question I had for the applicant is, how will daycare pickup and drop off be handled? So how many children will the facility serve, and then how will car stacking be managed?
Is Jonathan Ross on? I see his name on the roll. I don't hear him. Jonathan, if you're on mute, you might want to unmute.
I see him here and I see his microphone is unmuted, so not sure why we can't hear him. Jonathan? His microphone is unmuted, so I really don't.
Okay. Well, I can try to answer this one, Cecily. So the idea is that parents, guardians drive their children up, and they if Marta could go to the site plan colored rendering, that would be the best one to talk about. I think it's sheet maybe 4 or 5 somewhere, and there it is, 6. The idea is that moms, dads, guardians would park in the 4 or 5 parking spaces that is just left of the daycare building, adjacent to the outside play, and they would essentially come out, walk down that front sidewalk and in. Craig, do you have from your floor plan, how many children are planned for this?
It was, I don't have the number on me. It's 100 and it's like 100. I want to say 120 something. We have 137 people. 137. Hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you. Is that students? Is that total people?
The total people, including staff, I have is approximately 140 people, including staff.
So just if everyone else can do that, I'll keep going here with the comments. John, Joe, and anyone else who is unmuted, please mute.
Are you finished, Cecily?
No, can you mute and then I'll keep going. I'm hearing an echo. Chris, sorry, Craig Bennett,
Yes.
can you mute? Anyone who's not speaking, please mute. Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, so I do have a concern with that many children with arriving in vehicles, private vehicles, coming to the center. It seems like there is that small triangle right directly out front of the center entrance. Clearly on in mornings with drop-offs, even if they're staggered, that's a lot of traffic. People parking, moving in and out, and then exiting. It seems like there would have to be some use of additional parking, either in this plan to the right, I guess to the east, and crossing over, or more preferably, sorry, dogs barking in the background, to the west. So I think pedestrian routes to the center from the parking spaces, not just directly in front, but to the west, most likely, to avoid the cars coming in off Ebenezer, would be appropriate. Having clearly marked pedestrian ways within the parking lot. I'll echo the having some plantings along that front entry where there's 11 feet, not to overcrowd that, but at least to have some softening. My other comments are on the architecture. I think there is a mandate. I'm going to bring up the staff's comments from the Baltimore County Council Resolution number 67-15 that non-residential buildings be predominantly brick. We don't see that here. I understand, the stone, the form stone base to tie in with the shopping center, but then the remainder of the building is EIFS. And I do worry that only after that maybe 2 or 3 feet of distance above that is EIFS. It's not very durable and won't wear well. I think the portions of the facade should be predominantly brick as indicated by that council resolution. And I think the same look could be achieved with a brick above the water table. I'd like to see honestly a different brick base as well as brick above it, because the stone, while it's echoed on the adjacent shopping center, it's not natural stone. It doesn't meet the grade well. It usually hovers above the grade ground plane and doesn't meet it appropriately. So brick would seem to be a better choice of material, both by the mandated resolution as well as just a choice. And I think the colors could be echoing the shopping center rather than try to match it in an identical fashion. The signage, Marta, if you could go to that. I think there's a signage on over the entrance, then maybe on the Ebenezer side, if I'm reading that correctly. I think that I'm not sure what the panel is to the left of the pin signage. Seems like a small graphic there. Is that a logo that's part of the signage, or what is that element?
That's a logo. That's part of their logo.
Okay. It seems a little, I mean, the text of the sign is almost centered, but not quite centered. It'd be nice if that could be centered, and then the graphic portion logo could be reduced so that it doesn't cause the signage to be slightly off center. It just feels uncomfortable right now with that element. The signage is how is the signage conceived? What are the materials of the signage? Is it channel lit, acrylic letters backlit, or are they pinned off? What are the signage types?
Well, our hope is they would be individual letters, the No Raceway.
Okay, and then how are they lit or
Lit,
just?
yeah, lit, yes.
What's on the center currently? Are the channel lit letters?
They're, it's a mix, but they're all mostly lit, yes.
Okay. Okay, those are my comments.
Thank you, Cecily. Donald?
Yes, I have a couple comments. I think the discussion about the width of the sidewalk at the front of the building is terribly narrow, and I wonder whether if one space was reduced heading back toward the main shopping center, that you could widen the sidewalk by that additional width. I think with all young people coming out, and particularly people trying to manage all that with cars coming by and maybe stacking up almost to Ebenezer Road, that the more we can provide sidewalk width there to make it comfortable and maybe some planting as well, I think it would make a big difference, and I would certainly encourage that. The other comment, and I would agree that the body of the building should be something of the deepest to stand up. The other question is sort of the dimension between the pilaster plane and the glass plane, and whether that is set back any distance or other than at the front entrance where it hits a pilaster or not, particularly where on the entry drive elevation where there's no windows. And I think that expressing those with some setback where the glass hits it and where the other solid materials hit it would make a big difference in sort of getting a little bit of a shadow line there. I think that would make it a little stronger with that subtle change. And I agree with other comments that have been made.
Thank you, Don. Matt D'Amico?
John, I don't have anything else to add.
Thank you. And neither do I. So does someone want to make a motion?
This is Cecily. Just a quick conversation first with the suggested change to the building materials and the sidewalk area. Just like to first discuss that with the group and see if there is a majority who feel like that is something to carry forward and required to come back, or if that's something that can be approved with recommendations and staff review.
In my case, depending on the final characteristic of the motion, I would probably lean towards approving with any revisions going back to staff review. And if they need to forward it to myself and a couple other members for a quick look at, I would be fine with that.
Anyone else on the panel have any strong feelings on that?
I think if we define the parameters for the exterior material adequately, then I think it could be a staff review.
This is Matt, I would agree with that. I think if we can be specific in the comments, there should be pretty straightforward to pick up with staff.
Okay, I think it was Dawn who spoke last about the sidewalk in front of the building. Dawn, can you restate your comment on that, or I think it was Dawn, but can you restate that just so I can put it into a motion? I'll be happy to make a motion. I just want to make sure I have clarity on that. Were you suggesting that they widen the sidewalk?
Well, I was suggesting that they reduce the number of parking spaces south of that driveway so that the sidewalk could be widened. You took one parking space out of those rows, you could widen the sidewalk feet or 8.5 or whatever, 9 feet. That was the thought.
Okay, understood, right, and it doesn't align with any other portion of the parking lot, so I think that could be done. Okay, so I will make a motion that the applicant revise the submission based on the following comments for review by staff, and the panel approves with those conditions. One, that the facade material be redesigned to be predominantly brick as required by the County Council Resolution number 67-15, particularly looking at reducing the amount of ephes on the building. That in front of the building to the south of the building on the parking lot side, that one row of parking spaces be eliminated so that the curb to building distance can be expanded to incorporate both additional sidewalk area as well as planting. That the signage, the text portion of the signage be centered on that portion of the facade. That there is shade incorporated into the play area. And I believe that's it.
Do we want to add that the brick color palette be compatible with the existing center?
Yes, I think that's a good add.
Did you pick up on the suggestion of adding some landscape in the front? I think particularly if you did say that, okay.
Yes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you all very much. Thank you for the presentation this evening. And panel members, thank you for attending. Unless anyone has something else, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, everybody. Good job.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Marta.
Thank you, Marta.
Marta, should I stick around? Should me and Emery stick around?
Okay. You can catch up in the morning.
We can catch up in the morning. Yes, it's been a long evening. unless you still wants to work.
Okay.
Thanks, Jen.
We're the team. We're the team.
Good night.
Okay, good night.
I just have two quick things.
Okay, Brad. So let's stay. Okay, sure. Thank you.
Oh, it's just really, really quick.
Brad, I
so-
think we still have.
No, they're all gone.
Oh, okay, okay.
So you did get my message to refer Sebastian to Jeff Livingston, right?